Story 1. Heading to a restaurant with my sister and our mom is usually a straightforward affair, but today was different. We pulled into the parking lot, and I immediately noticed an open handicap spot near the entrance. Perfect, I thought, since Mom's in a wheelchair and I've got this cumbersome leg brace on. As we approached the spot, I saw a blue car in the adjacent handicap space starting to back out. Then, weirdly, it stopped and pulled back in. I figured the driver was either straightening out or waiting for us to pass. No big deal, right? We pulled into the open space and began to get out. That's when the driver of the blue car, who I'd later dub Karen in my mind, walked over. She just stood there, waiting for us to start unloading. Then she launched into a full-blown tirade. "You stole my spot," she yelled. I glanced at my sister, utterly confused. Karen continued, "I was backing into that space when you just came along and snatched it from me. My grandmother is 80 years old and in a wheelchair. We need this spot more than you do." I was dumbfounded. First of all, there was no way we could have known she was backing into the spot since we approached from the side. I pointed this out, trying to keep my cool. "How were we supposed to see your brake lights when we were coming from the side?" I asked. She completely ignored my question and started attacking us instead. "You don't even look handicapped," she screamed, gesturing wildly at me and my sister. My temper flared. I pointed to our elderly mother, who was sitting patiently in her wheelchair, and then at my leg brace. "Look, my mom is in a wheelchair, and I'm in a leg brace. We need this spot." Admittedly, this is when I lost my cool. "Why don't you just piss off?" I snapped. Karen's face turned red with anger. She stormed off, her parents trailing behind her. Her mother gave us a death glare that could have curdled milk. I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself down. My sister, who had been quiet up until this point, shook her head. "Can you believe her?" she asked. "We were perfectly in the right to take that spot." I nodded. "Yeah, but she's convinced she's the victim here." As we got Mom's wheelchair out and helped her into it, I noticed Karen's father had a cane. But here's the kicker. Neither he nor Karen's mother was in a wheelchair, and, as it turned out, Karen's grandmother had already been dropped off and was inside the restaurant. The whole situation was ridiculous. Inside the restaurant, I couldn't shake off the encounter. We were seated near the window, and I kept an eye out for Karen and her family. Sure enough, they walked in a few minutes later. Karen was still fuming, and her parents looked just as annoyed. My sister leaned over and whispered, "Just ignore them. Let's enjoy our meal." She was right, of course. There was no point in letting one entitled person ruin our day, but it was easier said than done. Story 2. I joined Arcade Health, a medium-sized healthcare company, as a software engineer at the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. Initially, the team I joined had a group of 5-6 offshore resources, but due to cost-cutting measures, they were let go. This left only 2 onshore resources, myself and an older colleague named Tim. Dingbat, my lead for the content management side, was initially in charge. However, due to another project assignment, Angel became an additional lead alongside Dingbat, under the functional management of Grim. After 6 months, it became evident that I was excelling in my role. However, Dingbat, seemingly wanting to assert dominance, took it upon herself to call me on my personal number and berate me. Concerned about the situation, I reported the incident to Grim, expecting it to be addressed. Unfortunately, nothing came of it. Grim and Dingbat had a long-standing positive relationship, which influenced how the matter was handled. A month later, Dingbat began harassing Tim, who was not originally a software engineer but was forced into the role. As a result, Tim faced a steep learning curve, and Dingbat questioned his intelligence on multiple occasions. Finally, Tim reached a breaking point, and we arranged a meeting with Dingbat and Grim to address the issue. It was during this meeting that Grim had to acknowledge that Dingbat's true character did not align with the person they portrayed. For a while, things settled down, and Dingbat became somewhat more manageable to work with. Meanwhile, my project with Angel picked up pace, leaving me with less time to dedicate to Dingbat's project. However, Dingbat expected me to handle her project as if I had no other responsibilities and assigned me an overwhelming number of tasks. Angel, on the other hand, couldn't devote much time to our shared project since she was the sole engineer on another project. This left me juggling both Dingbat's and Angel's projects simultaneously. Realizing the strain this put on me, I sat down with Grim and explained that I had been working 80-hour weeks for a month. After hearing my concerns, Grim made the decision to temporarily relieve me of Dingbat's project. He instructed Dingbat to assign me only a few less demanding tasks. Although Dingbat was displeased, she reluctantly complied. As the year-end approached, during the meeting where leads report to managers, Angel went above and beyond to give me a glowing recommendation for a promotion. One notable accomplishment of mine was developing a solution that ensured the integrity of the key JSON values for all models. These values were crucial, as any issues with them would render the entire functionality of the system useless, preventing users from sending data to the server unless the code was modified. Developing this solution was an intensive 2-month effort, requiring 80-hour workweeks. Despite my dedication and hard work, Dingbat dismissed my achievements and labeled me as incompetent, citing a supposed bad attitude. Dingbat's consistently negative comments became increasingly frustrating over time. Unfortunately, Dingbat's heavy criticism became a roadblock to my promised promotion, which Grim had assured me would come. However, Angel persistently advocated for my promotion at every available opportunity, emphasizing my strong work ethic and positive attitude. In the end, it seemed that Grim's friendship with Dingbat outweighed the recognition of my efforts. Fast forward 3 months, and I find myself back on Dingbat's project. During my absence, Dingbat continued to harass Tim relentlessly. Since the beginning of the year, when I was reassigned to her project, Dingbat has made it a habit to nitpick and criticize me at least twice every day. Fed up with her behavior, I confronted Dingbat in a chat, expressing how disrespectful her actions were toward both Tim and me. However, due to a miscommunication where she failed to inform me about certain tickets, I was unaware of their existence. The next day, she added Grim to the chat, leading to a meeting where I detailed Dingbat's ongoing actions. Grim, I believe your dissatisfaction stems from being removed from Angel's project, and you're redirecting it towards Dingbat. Me no. Dingbat has been verbally attacking me daily, calling me and cursing at me twice, creating a hostile work environment overall. This has been going on for a while. Grim, you need to consider how others perceive you. Your attitude appears negative. As a result, Grim brings in his boss, Cherry. Together, they put me on a performance improvement plan PIP. This plan requires me to create a survey addressing the issues outlined and find a new area to work in within 6 months. During the meeting, they say, you should seriously evaluate how your team perceives you and decide if you want to stay with this company. You must strictly adhere to this PIP. If you make a single misstep, you're out. I respond, I didn't even think my actions were that inappropriate. It was Dingbat who escalated the situation. If you review the conversation, I made it clear that it should not have escalated, but she pushed it further. They reply, I suppose this is an opportunity for you to learn how to communicate with others and choose your words more carefully. Strike 1. Grim strongly emphasizes the importance of the mandatory survey, as they expect it to guide my response. Consequently, I let Grim write it for me. To my surprise, the feedback from every survey emphasizes the following. Op has an excellent attitude, is a pleasure to work with, and remains positive throughout. They focus on resolving issues efficiently. Strike 2. Grim and Dingbat assume that I will remain in my position until the end of the performance plan, without discussing my replacement. However, I take the initiative and approach the manager of another team we collaborate closely with on Dingbat's team. Unfortunately, that manager didn't have an open position, but another team did. Within 2 months, he arranges an interview for me with that team. Fortunately, my positive reputation preceded me, and I was offered the job. I had to submit a notice for my current position within the same company, following peculiar corporate human resources rules. Up until that point, Grim had been ignoring my emails regarding a possible transition, assuming I would remain for a few more months. During my notice period, I didn't receive any new tickets. However, I did set up a system based on Dingbat's own specifications. When Dingbat becomes upset about it, I simply quote her own words using the WebEx feature. I say, "I'm following the schematics you provided. You mentioned wanting a system where you only have to press a single button, and if you prefer, you don't even have to press it at all." Dingbat, I don't care. It's not useful. Grim, Dingbat, why are you resisting this? It's beneficial. Dingbat, fine. I'll take a look. Op has never produced anything useful for us. They aren't even technical. Little did Dingbat know that my new job required much more technical expertise than she had ever needed. Grim, just give it a try. Op. Schedule the meeting. Dingbat, it has to be on a Wednesday because I'm so busy. Me sends out the meeting invitation for Wednesday. Later on. Grim, can we reschedule for a later or earlier time? I already have 3 hours of meetings, and this is my only break slot. Me, no, sorry. Dingbat insisted on Wednesday, and this is the only available time I have before I leave. Grim, oh, okay. Word reaches Cherry, and she is furious. However, she can't take any action against me. I'm already in my notice period, and I have only done what I was asked to do. And so, the next 2 weeks unfolded in a similar fashion. On my way out, my new manager noticed my well-dressed attire and asked about it. I tell the truth, Grim instructed me to dress in business casual whenever we were in the office. He specifically mentioned slacks, a solid polo shirt, and a tie. Grim, a week ago, I was asked by HR why I was enforcing a business casual dress code for you. Me, you told me it was mandatory. While I understand that Grim meant it as a guideline, I followed it strictly. Grim, I got reprimanded for it. Me, I suppose this is an exercise in learning how to speak to others and watch our words. Grim, no comment. Strike 3. On my way out, I confided in Tim that the way Dingbat was managing the team was unsustainable. With my departure, he would be expected to take on additional responsibilities. It's important to note that Tim is a senior citizen, and this situation was far from ideal. I could hear the anguish in his voice. I advised him to explore opportunities on other teams within the company. However, that weekend, Tim's wife tragically passed away. May she rest in peace. As Tim made his own exit, he mentioned my comments and his wife's passing as reasons for his decision to retire. Now, Dingbat is left with no assistance, a system designed to replace Tim's role that she was counting on him to use, and the daunting task of working on 2 other systems for her migration project alone, while waiting 2-3 months for the corporate bureaucracy to find replacements for both of us. Meanwhile, I have a front row seat to witness Dingbat's incompetence coming back to haunt her. Sweet revenge indeed. Story 3. Our neighbor is downright crazy. We've lived in our apartment for 4 years, and we love it. However, the past year has been a nightmare. We got a new neighbor, not in our hallway, but in the adjoining building hallway. She shares a wall with us. The first few weeks were fine. We talked with her and told her that if there were ever any issues, we were open to communication. We've never had any issues before, but due to us having a dog, although quite small, we like to be upfront with all our neighbors to have a healthy relationship with the people around us. After the first few weeks, the problems started occurring. Suddenly, we got complaints about our dog barking. Not just a complaint, but 3 or 4 in a week. Our dog is the most gentle old soul there is, and he only barks on 3 occasions, when the doorbell rings and he's happy to see you, when he gets spooked by something which is rare, and when we play, which we only do for 5 to 10 minutes at a time because we know the sound can be annoying. He never barks when he's home alone. He's very chill and mellow. He's made friends with everyone in our hallway, and several of them have been dog sitting if we had to leave for longer periods of time. They all say he's the easiest dog to look after. Anyway, we talked to the superintendent, who wasn't allowed to elaborate on who the complaints were coming from, as they were reported anonymously. But we soon found out. The neighbor, who I'll call Karen from now on, started banging on the walls whenever she felt like we were too loud. One weekend at around 10:30 am, we had been playing with our dog for maybe 5 minutes when she aggressively banged on our wall. Mind you, we live in a concrete building with 30 centimeters thick walls. I talked to everyone else in our hallway, but no one was bothered by our dog. We live in a building with several other dogs, and in the surrounding buildings, there are dogs as well, dogs who bark. We tried to keep it down, and for a while, we thought that was the end of it. Recently, Karen started complaining again, not just to the landlord and superintendent, but also in our Facebook group designated for our area. While we were away on holiday out of the country, Karen decided it was time to do a long rant in the Facebook group, telling everyone how horrible we are at keeping our dog quiet, that we make him bark just to annoy her, etc. She even stooped so low that she commented on our intimate life, writing about how loud we are, and that I female have loud fake orgasms. And yes, our superintendent saw it and has screenshots as proof, because, of course, she edited it later when we returned home. I feel trapped in my own home, being afraid to do anything that might set her off and give us another complaint. Luckily, the superintendent is on our side. He and other neighbors have told us that we're not the only ones she's complained about. She's also complained about a newborn with colic who was crying, a developmentally disabled child who can't talk and therefore makes noises instead, someone talking on their own balcony. Karen told the person to respect her privacy and that she didn't want to hear what they were talking about. They're 3 apartments apart. An elderly man living underneath her apartment who needed help. She complained that his helpers were making too much noise when they visited. And then, of course, us. Honestly, we all dislike her. Update. So, we've been in contact with our superintendent about our troublesome neighbor. The superintendent and the owner don't like how she's behaving either, but it is extremely hard to evict someone from their apartment in my country if they don't do any physical harm to people or the property. We haven't really heard anything in a few months, even though it's summer and our balcony door and windows are open. But tonight, it seems like she's changed tactics. There's a party for our building complex, and due to work and other commitments, we're not attending. I walked by the venue while walking my dog and saw Karen sitting at one of the tables. No surprise there. I didn't say hi to the people around her, who are actually people I like. I just waved and walked on. Afternoon turned to evening, and it was time for another walk. This time, Karen wasn't there anymore. My neighbors came out to greet me, the dog, and my boyfriend, and we started chatting. Because some of them were slightly tipsy, they soon started telling us what had happened during the party. One of our very good neighbors, Anna, told us that Karen had spent most of the night complaining to anyone who would listen, not about our dog, which seemed to be the original problem. No, it was about me, personally. I have never been anything but kind towards her, so I have no clue why she suddenly has a personal vendetta against me. When we returned home, my boyfriend and I seriously discussed that she might have more serious mental issues than post-traumatic stress disorder. Not that post-traumatic stress disorder isn't serious, but since she seems to target me specifically, we've started to suspect a disorder like borderline personality disorder or something like that. In general, we just feel sorry for her. We are, of course, annoyed that she keeps complaining, but we seem to have solid ground under our feet and a good number of neighbors backing us up. But yeah, she's just not fit for living in an apartment building. On a happy note, our neighbors on the other side have just gotten a very cute puppy. I'm sure she'll complain about him as well once he learns how to bark properly and undergoes home alone training. But I'm just really excited about watching this little furball grow up. Story 4. Hello, all. I felt reluctant to share this story because I was a bit embarrassed, but now that I'm over something so trivial, I figured y'all might enjoy it. So a new grocery store opened up in our relatively small town early this summer. I've literally only been in it once, grand opening, before this story takes place because it's halfway downtown, and I am a rural resident who would much rather shop at a different location, which is literally the first store upon coming into town. Because of this, I had absolutely no recollection of the employee uniforms or else would have selected my clothes a touch differently. Well, I walked in with black dress pants, but they were pretty wear and tear along the bottom because everything is either slightly too long or way too short for me, and I never get around to hemming my pants, so they're usually questionable 5 or 6 months down the line. On top of this, I was wearing a black light fleece jacket from my workplace and had the company logo on the front. When I shop, I typically am so focused on what I'm doing, I don't even stray my gaze away at other people outside of a peripheral. Are we going to be in each other's way? And the like. So onwards. I'm sizing up something I'm interested in and start doing math in my head with a little aid of hand gestures. It's kind of like pencil/paper math, the way I envision it, using the blank air to write. I know it's weird, but it works for me. While comparing my needs and wants versus my budget in the freezer foods department, I heard a small hey behind me. Sounded like it was a bit far off, and since anyone who knows me knows to be loud, hearing loss runs in the family, so I'm basically 10 or less years off from needing hearing aids barring high-pitched noises, which you'd think I was a dog with how they bring me to my knees, or specifically call my name. Imagined it was none of my dang business. A slightly frustrated, "Excuse me," followed a few seconds later. I honest to God thought at that moment, would you just help her? I don't want to hear her annoying tone. I was not in the best of moods, so a lot of stupid things would set me off. Finally, the back of my jacket was being pulled. What in the world? I whip around, shrugging off the hand that held me, and there's this woman somewhere along in her 40s or so, about a half-foot taller than me, so I end up staring in the wrong place. She was definitely dressed for summer. After looking up, I'm 5'7", pushing 5'8", so she was fairly taller than me, and catching a death glare, she started spouting off how rude I was for not paying attention, and I should even be reported for ogling her chest. She was wearing a very revealing top. Oh boy, awkward. I can't recall exactly what she wanted. Looking for a specific product, I know that much, but the condescending tone pretty much made everything she said nothing more than static noise, as my anger rose and rose and rose. I finally interrupted her and said, "Look, you witch? I don't work here, so leave me alone." I was about to walk away, but then she grabbed me, lifted me by my jacket, and pushed me up against a freezer door up about a foot, so I'm dangling my footsies in the air, now legitimately scared, the anger flowing down and out of me instantly. Holy Toledo, she is going to kill me. She leans in and starts barking about what a pathetic piece of trash I am, and I'm going to be fired and charged for sexual harassment, and that a loser like I am is going to die alone because no one likes a fatty. I'm overweight but not grossly obese like Jabba the Hutt, more of a, my general figure doesn't really change shape no matter how much weight I lose. Unexpectedly, she backs up suddenly and drops me. I don't quite catch the floor, tripping and stumbling along the aisle, my shoulders taking the brunt of it. I had enough senses to control how I fell. Well, lucky me, she got scared because an employee driving a pallet comes around the corner, and just as I'm picking myself up off the floor, she asks if I'm all right, fairly confused about what's going on. I limp over, turn around and point to the now fleeing entitled woman going around the opposite end of the aisle, and tell her that the woman assaulted me and call the police. She panicky tells me to just stay there and sprints towards the front of the store. The freezer department is isolated as the farthest section of the store. I'm stubborn and disregard staying there and making my way to the front. It takes a few solid minutes, and along the way I hear a lot of commotion. By the time I see anything, the manager is standing in front of the exit, apparently locked, automatic doors, so they weren't opening, and she was squawking all sorts of nonsense. Other customers see me and rush over to see if I'm okay, and this crazy freaking lady just death glares at me again and says I'm just faking it and that I was a disgusting pig who was trying to touch her. The manager speaks up and says, "Well, the police can look over the tapes to see for themselves." Well, the blood drained out of that woman so fast everyone instantly knew she was full of it. About 15 minutes later, the police arrived and spent another half hour doing all the procedure stuff, asking questions, taking statements. They did review the tapes, of course, and asked if I wanted to press charges. I said yes. They still hauled her off into their car and the manager gave me a $250 gift card. Story 5. I 43, female, have a very good friend also 43, female, and we've known each other for almost 20 years. I even want to call her my best friend on occasion, but she has this one characteristic that rears its ugly head from time to time, which really makes me unable to. The thing is, aside from that one bad habit of hers, she is a wonderful friend. I have countless hours of fun with her, and she also helps me any time I need it. I help her, too, of course. Just, a really great friendship. She also has 3 kids, one already grown-up female and 2 younger ones aged 13 male and 11 female. I am child-free and have always made it very clear that I don't like children. I have never harmed or even been unfriendly to any child, but I do try to steer clear of them. The characteristic? She is very good at, and likes to get people to finance stuff for her and her loved ones. She only ever asked me for money outright once and paid that back within a month, so she isn't just out to get money. But her ever resurfacing hinting of wanting to have this or that, or getting me in a situation that makes me buy stuff for her through basically social manipulation, really gives our friendship a bad aftertaste. She has done it since I've known her, and, at least I suspect, she is very much aware of what she's doing, since she is very good at keeping the balance of not overdoing it. She has done it regardless of me earning more or less than her. We've both had our ups and downs in life, just like most people. Over the years, I have gotten better at deflecting some of her advances, but I hate that I have to do it, and do it constantly. And when I do or don't manage to, it often ruins my good mood. Here are some memorable examples. Back in the day when calling someone on the phone was actually expensive, no free minutes, etc., she used to call, let it ring once, and hang up, so I would call her back missed call on the phone. We would talk for 2 hours at a time on my dime, just because she wanted to chat. When I stopped calling her back because I noticed the pattern, she suddenly reduced her just for chatting calls from nearly daily to maybe once every week or 2 weeks. She invited me to her husband's birthday once and told me what gift I should bring. At first, I thought it was cool since I didn't really know him that well, because while we were always on friendly terms, we just weren't close or anything. It turns out that thing cost €60. So, basically, she wanted her husband to get what he wanted to have, but not pay for it herself. How do I come to this conclusion? I was never invited to his birthday before that or ever since then. Just that one time. This was also nearly 10 years ago, so in today's money, that would probably be more around €80, 90. She once called me to lure me out to join her at our favorite bar, even though I didn't want to go out that evening. She worked me for a good 10 minutes on the phone, persuading me not to be a spoil sport, etc. The reason? So I could pay her tab, which I found out only after I had already ordered something for myself. From the waiter. I suspect I was not the only friend she pulled that one on. She asked me if I wanted to go shopping for some interior stuff since she was refurbishing her apartment. And, of course, she sees stuff she likes, picks it up, and puts it back, saying something like, "No, that will go over my budget, always only when I'm near enough to see and hear." So, of course, she ended up getting some items that she wanted to have that I paid for in the end. She always brings up occasions for her kids, where one would be expected to bring gifts, such as birthdays, back-to-school days, Easter, etc. Even though I have literally told her that I have no interest in becoming a gift aunt for her kids, who is expected to shower them with gifts on every occasion. That last one is actually the reason for this rant. I invited her to a pub quiz with some friends last Thursday since she hasn't been to one in ages. We both love them and used to go regularly years ago. And while on the way to our table, she casually brought up that next week is her daughter's birthday. I didn't say anything, and she didn't try to follow up either, but I caught myself thinking, not again. How many times are you going to try and get me to buy expensive gifts for your kids? Because of that, I can also never be sure if we're just having a casual conversation about life getting more expensive in general when we talk, and I get it. It does. Or if she is trying to soften me up for her next attempt to weasel out stuff from me again. And it is just so tiring to always be on the lookout for that. My suspicion is that's exactly what's happening right now, because she just had to get a new car, the old one basically died. We made a little test drive to a restaurant out of town with her new one a few weeks ago. I paid, but that was my choice. And she complained about what a huge hole it cut into her budget or savings on the way, so maybe she actually cleverly manipulated me into paying again. It was a nice outing, and she wants to do something like that again while it's still summer, possibly together with her kids, reassuring me how well behaved they are and that it won't turn into a babysitting chore, to the same restaurant, where food for two cost me €100. So, while it sounds kinda nice, I can't shake the sinking feeling that she expects me to pay for it all and will socially pressure me into doing exactly that. This time for her and her kids while entertaining them at the same time, knowing full well that I do not like children. So, that's it. That's the rant. Thanks for lending me your digital ears. Do you have a friend or family member like that? Go on, rant along. Sometimes ranting is all we can do, and it does make you feel better. Well, a bit. Story 6. So, my mother, a 52-year-old woman, is married to an incredibly unpleasant man who she has been with for 6 years. I can't stand him. He has an ego that can only be rivaled by arrogant fools. He has disrespected me in my own home, telling me I need to start dressing like an adult. I like to dress in what would be considered goth or emo attire. When my son was admitted to the hospital after a seizure that nearly killed him, I jokingly said to my mother over a video call, "I'm sorry I ruined your honeymoon." His response was, "Well, if anyone was going to, it would be you." This was not said in a joking manner. The audacity of this man! I was completely shocked that he would say something like that when my 2-year-old son was on a ventilator. But anyway, I digress. Over the 6 years my mother has been with this man, he has made no effort to get to know me or my 3 children. I've actually only spent time with him a handful of times, and during these occasions, he was incredibly condescending and rude. This week, I helped my youngest sister move out of their house after some boundaries were crossed. My mother devolved into what can only be described as a temper tantrum of epic proportions, shouting at me over the phone because I was not entertaining her nonsense. My mother could have her own thread with her ridiculousness. My sister went back to my mother's house without me to pick up some more of her things. My mother was not there, which is important. Her husband decided this was a brilliant time to start berating my sister about how she is moving out and said, "This isn't something you do. This is something that your sibling does," meaning me. Excuse me. Now, I was very mentally ill when I was younger, between the ages of 11 and 15. I'm now 33, attending university, where I just passed my first year with distinction and got on the dean's list for excellence. I've worked so hard on getting better and ensuring my children have all the support I never received. I won't lie, I was furious. This man knows nothing about me at all, including how incredibly petty I can be. So, I sent him a glitter bomb full of as much glitter and shiny confetti as I could order, about 30 pounds worth. I attached a note saying, "If you want to talk about what I do, this is what I do." I should also mention that my mother has repeatedly told me how much he hates glitter and how he thinks it is the work of the devil. So, I really hope he enjoys cleaning up all the sparkly confetti. I really wish I could be there to see the look on his face when he realizes that not only do I know what he said, but that he now has to explain to my mother why I sent it. It might not be the best petty revenge, but it warms the petty place in my heart, knowing that he will be finding glitter for months. Every time he does, he will remember not to use me as a bad example, because I'll give him a reason to call me one. Update. I'm back with the most wonderful update for you all. First of all, I wanted to give some context to a few bits I mentioned in my previous post. 1. I did not send him an envelope full of glitter. I sent him a spring-activated glitter bomb from an online prank store called Postal Pranks. I highly recommend them for your petty revenge plans. 2. My son is absolutely fine now. He is my little ginger whirlwind and has had no further seizures. Now, on to the update. Today was my previously mentioned sister's birthday. She went to see my mother and her unpleasant husband. While she was there, my mother's husband mentioned to her that someone had glitter bombed him. He then goes on to tell her how he opened it just as he was about to leave for a work trip and was completely covered in glitter and sparkly confetti. He then proceeded to lose his temper. He was so covered in glitter he had to change, as it was inside his clothing. This delayed him for about an hour. My mother proceeded to lose her temper as well since she had a guest over at the time who witnessed the entire spectacle. My sister, those drama classes truly paid off here, went on to ask questions to see if he had any idea who had sent it. That's where it gets mind-blowingly good. He has no idea it was me. Neither he nor my mother has any idea who sent this or why he received it. He obviously has no idea that my sister told me what he said about me. Now, I am deciding how I want to let them know it was me, or if I do at all. Maybe I'll just let him have a fit every time he sees a package that he didn't order.